This is Corncod 1 of Nationalist News and Notes. From a period of approximately 1979 till the fall of the Soviet Union, I was a dedicated Cold Warrior, and I'm not ashamed of that. I helped organize demonstrations against the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. I helped organize pro Jonas Savimbi demonstrations and activities in order that Angola not fall into the Soviet sphere. So I was always on the streets of New York in some sort of anti-Soviet demonstration. I would even sometimes follow around Soviet diplomatic vehicles because I knew most of the time they were spies. I would keep a watch on them whenever I saw a Soviet diplomatic plate. So I was a dedicated Cold Warrior. I even signed on the dotted line for officer training in the United States Army. Why did I do that? Is because I thought that there was a real possibility that the Soviets would come barreling through the Fulda Gap in Germany, and that they'd be a third world war, and my intention was to defend Western civilization from communism. But never in any of that time did I do any of those things to make Russia a puppet of the West. No one celebrated the fall of communism more happily than me. But it was never to integrate Russia into some sort of new world order, and never make Russia into a vassal state of the United States. In fact, as a young man, I read the Gulag Archipelago at age 16. That the more I learned about the Russian people, the more I loved the Russian people. So I made a distinction between the Russian people and the Soviet Union and its communistic government. Now we see a situation where the entire establishment in the United States is fighting Donald Trump because Donald Trump wants peace and good relations with Russia. And it's a darn shame. And I think all American patriots, all American nationalists, and all other people of goodwill who are against war, useless, stupid war, and for peace, should stand in solidarity with our president. It appears that the people that really run things in the West, all along, they were apparently wanting Russia to be a vassal state or a puppet state of the United States and Western Europe. That was never my objective as a civilian Cold Warrior. My objective always was that I always realized that Russia, post-communist, would be a country with its own interests, and that there'd be occasional disagreements with the United States, like we have with any large country. But it was never out of hatred for the Russian people. I love the Russian people. I have a penchant for 19th century Russian literature. So I have a great love for Russia. The more you learn about Russian culture, the more you appreciate it. I appreciate, even though I have theological differences, I appreciate the things that are good about the Russian Orthodox Church. The Russian Orthodox Church, by and large, in spite of some problems I have with its theology, is a force for good in the world. And there's a deep Christian spirituality there. So I never did any of those things to turn Russia into a puppet state. And I think trying to turn Russia into a puppet state, is the worst kind of imperialism. So the heck with Clapper, the heck with Brennan, the heck with all these people who are going into hysterical mode. Why has the Democratic Party suddenly become a party of war? It used to be a party of peace. I used to show up at anti-Middle Eastern war demonstrations, opposing our second invasion of Iraq. And it was just me, one or two paleoconservatives, because that's pretty much what I was at the time before becoming a full-blown nationalist. One or two paleoconservatives and thousands of leftists and liberals. But it just so happens that, especially on the second invasion of Iraq, that it was a terrible mistake. And so I marched with a bunch of leftists, even though they were holding signs sometimes for other causes, which I strongly disagreed with. I'm against all unnecessary war. I believe primarily in defensive war and in certain extreme cases, preventative war. But there is no reason in the world for the United States to have hostility against Russia. Despite all the pearl clutching and extreme rhetoric, Vladimir Putin is not Joseph Stalin. Joseph Stalin murdered as many as 30 million people. Putin, maybe 2 or 3 journalists or something. But he's not a threat to peace. He's not, at base, a violent man. And reigniting the Cold War and trying to turn Russia into a puppet state is pure insanity. So I urge all Americans, support President Trump in his efforts to improve relations with Russia. This is Corncod One of Nationalist News and Notes, signing off.